And just to remind you, you're listening to The Voice of Russia in London, and today we're discussing Greece's second EU bailout. I'm joined in the studio by David Coburn, chairman of the UK Independence Party in London, and Petros Fassoulas, director of Euromove. If we could just return to Greece as the subject of today's discussion, but particularly the austerity measures that have come in. And one of those you mentioned earlier, Petros, particularly Greece's bloated civil service. The EU officials have said that they want to reduce it by 150,000 between now and 2015. Meanwhile, economists have said that these austerity measures could have a profoundly negative impact on Greece. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have to keep in mind that the vast majority of governments in the Eurozone right now are conservative, right of center. So they're applying a certain remedy that is parallel to their ideology, which focuses on austerity rather than Keynesian growth investment. And I will agree with those that argue that just focusing on austerity is not enough. The fact, though, is that Greece has been mismanaging its economy for far too long, and it has allowed the public sector to grow beyond recognition. And there is a need for radical reduction of the civil service, as you mentioned, and that cannot happen without a lot of pain. But at the same time, it's imperative that a concerted effort to invest in the Greek economy is undertaken, and the European Union is actually doing that. About 15 billion of EU funds are direct, structural and cohesion funds are directed to Greece. Up until now, the rule was that you needed to have 50% co-financing from the member state. Now that has been abolished, so 95% of the funding of projects will come from the EU, and the rest will be from the nation state. So that will help that growth that comes with austerity. But it takes time. This is not going to happen overnight. Neither the reform of the economy, nor the reduction of the public sector, nor the investment necessary. And we have to give Greece that time and that opportunity to grow.
The only thing that's going to stimulate the Greek economy is to completely change what you're doing right now. The best thing they can do is get out of the euro, issue the drachma, and that way you'll be able to devalue, and you'll encourage people to come on holiday in Greece. They'll bring more money, cheaper ouzo, cheaper resina. People will go there. You'll have people will be. It will help Greece in terms of competition because the labour will be cheaper. That is the only way you're going to stimulate the economy. All the rest of it is just so much nonsense.
I fear that devaluation is a get out of jail free card for politicians that are not prepared to do the medium and long term reforms necessary.
But it won't work. You've tried it. It's impossible.
It's been a year now that the Greece is going through. Again the word of revolution.
Well, you've got a revolution.
It's been a year.
People throwing Molotov cocktails is hardly a tea party, is it?
It's been a year that the reform program has been taking place in Greece, and that's no time whatsoever to actually achieve what is necessary. As I mentioned earlier, Greece needs time, and we have to give it to it. Leaving the Eurozone, so removing ourselves from the protection of the European Central Bank and the European Union itself is not the answer.
Devaluing the currency
without improving the quality of the services you offer, devaluing the currency won't make a difference to how much tourism you attract. There is many other things.
Of course it will.
There are many other things.
The reason why people don't go to Italy on holiday, I mean, I used to spend a lot of time in Italy and Greece and various other places, and nothing will encourage me more to go on holiday in Greece than to have things much cheaper. Hotels cheaper, food cheaper, service cheaper, everything cheaper. Of course, that is how economies boost themselves. A weak economy boosts itself, being cheaper and more economic than others. And it would also benefit Spain. Spain needs to do the same thing. Spain needs to get out of the European Union. 24% people unemployed. You don't like this word revolution, but that's what you're going to have.
You are subscribing the remedy actually that brought the world economy to its knees in the 1930s. The competitive devaluation that took place after the economic crash is what destroyed the world economy as a total. And the Eurozone, having a single currency, is what saved us from that competitive devaluation. So you are calling for a competitive devaluation. What stops everybody else from devaluing the currency? And for that matter, the UK has devalued its currency by about 20%, and we haven't seen a single change in the amount of exports that go out. You know why? Because the products that the UK makes rely on raw materials that we have to import from abroad. And the cost of the raw materials went up because we devalued our currency, so our exports have remained exactly the same price, and we haven't made any difference. Instead, inflation has gone up and has been hurting decreasing incomes in the UK.
Problems we got to the UK, so we get rid of a lot of our productive industries have been allowed to wither on the vine. And quite frankly, the government sector has become so enormous. We're paying a huge amount of money for our civil servants, for their retirement packages. The whole country has become almost like
That is a separate issue, but I'm just explaining to you why a devaluation doesn't work. It didn't work in the UK, it hasn't worked in many other countries, and engaging the competitive devaluation that you are calling for will really bring the world economy to its knees, and we should avoid this kind of rhetoric.
Well, what other way have you got to get out of it? You haven't got a realistic way out of it.
Oh, I just explained it earlier. As I said,
you've got to be more competitive, and the only way to do that is to Greece needs to devalue its currency. What a currency that's dictated by Germany that suits Germany does not suit Greece. And anybody who thinks otherwise does not understand economics.
That is not true, but...
Well, actually, if I could just pick up on that point in particular, Greeks themselves, and correct me if I'm wrong here, find it frankly humiliating that Greek sovereignty is being undermined by Europe, that certain conditions are being imposed that are non-negotiable. One such thing is having monitors almost babysitting the economy. Does this not set a rather dangerous precedent for Europe as a whole, particularly the struggling economies such as Portugal, Ireland, Spain? Once we start down this road, where does it end?
Well, there is no doubt.
To take the point of the Eurozone as a whole first, as I mentioned earlier, it is important that we share this currency. We're all shareholders of this currency. So we have to make the decisions that affect this currency together. There is not a question of imposing policies on each other, but having the governance structures in place that will allow us all to come around a table and decide common policies that affect us all. As far as Greece is concerned, I have been having conversations with a lot of people down there, and they're remarkably disappointed at the way Greek political elites have been managing the economy for the last 20, 30 years.
Yes, but it's not for you to decide how it's done. It's not for the European Union to come in there and say, we don't like the way the democratically elected Greek government have run their economy, and we are just going to take it over.
This is not what they're doing. Greece is, in effect,
what do you call
an IMF program. Let me just finish. Greece is an IMF program. Around the world, everywhere you've had IMF intervention, you had to apply IMF policies. It happened in Latin America, it happened in Southeast Asia, it happened in Turkey less than 10 years ago. And that's what exactly is happening in Greece right now. We are receiving IMF money, and we are applying the economic policies that the IMF is prescribing, because these are the conditions of the package. On the same time, we have colleagues from the European Union assisting us with the reform of the economy. That is something completely different. They're bringing in technical expertise to assist the reform of the economy.
So the Greeks are not capable of running their own economy? That's your message to the Greek people?
It is not my message to the Greek people. This is what actually Greek people tell me.
So what happens in this country if we have a little bit of trouble? Are we going to have European commissioners like Peter Mandelson and Michael Heseltine and Nick Clegg appointed to run the country and remove the democratic elected government?
Nick Clegg, if last time I checked, was the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK.
Nick Clegg has also previously worked for the European Union. He's absolutely dedicated to it. Won't say a bad word about it because he loses his pension, I think, if he does.
I think you should get your facts right. He's a Deputy Prime Minister of the UK. I would expect you to know that.
I know he's a Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, but I'm sure he'd make a very good, very useful agent of the European Union. So Michael Heseltine, I think he had held that position at one point as well. Basically, it's a non-job. But if you just go around and pointing administrations in various countries because they've economic problems, that's hardly a democracy. And this is what the European Union is all about. You know, when we have a vote or a referendum on a particular treaty or whatever, those who don't get the answer right have to repeatedly vote again and again and again. It happened in France. It happened in Ireland. If you don't get the answer right, you keep voting until you get the answer the European Commission want. It's a very nasty.
The conversation, unfortunately, here is about something different, and it's disappointing to see you retreating to the usual UKIP language. We're talking about something completely different. If we want to talk about referenda around the EU, we can do so later.
You mean the Greek economy being directed by the European Union is not a serious issue?
But the Greek economy is not directed by the European Union. The Greeks are going to have an election in April, and they're going to appoint their own government. But at the same time, we have the technical assistance of the IMF, as all IMF programs, and the technical assistance of our EU partners, because we are shareholders of a common currency and we need to make decisions together.
And just to remind you, you're listening to The Voice of Russia in London, and today we're discussing Greece's second EU